everyone, I hope you're all doing super well and welcome to my little review of Golden Acrylic Gesso. I thought I would make this video as I'm nearly running out of this gesso. I've been using it for quite a few months now and I haven't made a review of it or anything, and so I thought I'd make a review before it runs out. About the brand Golden, they're meant to have very high quality acrylic paints. I know they have a big range of acrylics. And so I thought it would be interesting to try out their primer because I've heard a lot of really positive things about their primers. And also what's so interesting about them is that although they have high quality products, they're not super expensive, but equally they're not super cheap. So I thought they would be quite interesting to try out. I also feel that you may find this useful if you are looking for a gesso because there are so many gessos to choose from. When I was looking for a gesso to apply on wood, which is mostly how I've been using this, I was so confused. Like the amount of gessos they have all different types of textures, they've got different colours, and I just spent so long looking and I was just completely overwhelmed. Basically what a gesso is, just a quick overview, is that it is a primer that you can prime on any surface pretty much to paint on. And a lot of the time they come in a white, but you can get them in different colours, like sort of metallic colours. Some people love to paint on kind of metallics, or you can get them in black as well, which is another interesting option. I have acrylic primer I got for around £13. They do have a bigger size, a couple of bigger sizes I think, and I think that the black gesso was more expensive, a couple of pounds more expensive. The texture of this gesso is kind of similar to mayonnaise. That sounds really weird, but I'd say that's probably the closest I can think of. A little bit more on the fluid side, so it's more easily spreadable. And what's really cool about it is that it's not too watery. I have seen some other ones, some other gessos on videos where you pour it on and they like slide around everywhere, whereas this is actually so easy to apply. I mean, it's like with the brush, it just runs like silk. It's so smooth. And what I like to do is I get a piece of wood, as so, and I will sand it first, then I will apply a coat of gesso and I'll wait for that to dry. Now normally the first layer of gesso dries really fast. Then I will sand down that gesso layer, then I'll add another coat of primer. Then I'll sand, once that's dried, I will sand that down and then add another coat of primer. So I normally do 3 coats. Obviously you can customise your surface to however you want. I always do this outside, by the way, and I wear a mask because you don't want to get those sort of dust particles and things in your face and, you know, cause allergies and stuff. And this gesso is semi-absorbent, so it's going to allow the paint to sit a certain degree on top of the primer. It's not going to completely sink through, it's not super absorbent. And equally, it's not like an oil primer where the paint will sit on top. As in my review, I was totally impressed with this. I even used it on some pretty cheap wood from Amazon, which can be very dodgy. And I still felt that my paintings came out really beautifully. I thought that the paint, when this is obviously dried and I start to paint on the surface, I found that my paint came out really vibrant. The surface was very smooth. And it was just everything that I wanted in a kind of gesso, really. I think that all the positive reviews about it are great. And I do think that if you're somebody who's been interested in checking it out, I'm not sponsored by them, but I do think it is a beautiful and high quality product. Would I use? I would recommend paying a little bit more and getting more decent birch, because I did go down the sort of like cheap avenue of Amazon, and actually this wasn't because I didn't purchase it because it was the cheapest one. I just purchased it because it was the one that fitted my specifications, like the size that I needed and also the thickness. But this turned out to be this was like from some random Amazon place. This turned out to be a bit disappointing. Like, I don't know why exactly, probably just because it's not that high quality wood, but I didn't find this to be that great, the really cheap stuff. So instead, I've been using these smooth plywood panels by Jackson's Art Supplies, and I found them to be really amazing. They're thicker though, and that is a slight disadvantage for me. I do prefer working on panels that are thinner because they're so much easier for me to frame, but they're already kind of sanded down, so you can just whack your primer on straight away. Like, you don't need to sand initially, and I just found that the quality of them is really, really incredible. They are a bit more expensive than obviously buying the cheaper stuff, but I do feel like it's worth the price. Just like the Golden Gesso, it is more expensive than, you know, other gessos. You can get really, really cheap gesso, but I always feel like you pay for the quality. Finally, I thought I'd talk about something quite controversial, which is actually using an acrylic gesso. It is a little bit controversial, believe it or not, in the kind of oil painting world. Obviously not in any other painting, but in oil painting land, there are some artists who think that you should not be using acrylic gesso to prime your wood or prime your canvases. You should be using oil primed linen. And for me personally, I have been painting for many years and I specialise in oil painting. So this is not, I'm not saying that I'm right, but I do genuinely think that I am right. I'm happy for people to disagree with me. Please leave your disagreements in the comment section. Also, please forgive the slight flickering. My ring light is about to destroy itself. But I would say, perhaps it's warning me not to go into this topic, but I would say truly believe that it doesn't matter what you prime your surfaces with, as long as it's a relatively high quality product. Now, this Golden Gesso is very high quality, and if you choose a high quality gesso, I don't believe that painting on oil primed surfaces are superior. And I think that the skill really comes in the execution of the painting, and it doesn't start with necessarily the primer. I think that that is, obviously if it's a high quality product, you're onto a good base, you're onto a good surface, and then it's up to the artist to create something worth viewing. The reason why I do think that this concept is a bit silly, this idea that oil primed linen is superior to any other surface, is because I use oil primed linen and I also use wood, gesso primed wood, and I use panels that are sometimes gesso boards, and so I use stretch canvas as well, like stretch cotton canvas. And because of this, I've got all these surfaces in rotation, and I've found that it's not the surface that makes you a good artist. It's really working hard and making sure that you are painting something decent and well. And it's really about hard work, and it's not to do with you know, you've spent so much money on buying like the best oil primed linen. And I don't always feel like painting on oil primed linen, if I'm honest. I don't always feel like painting on gesso. I just paint on whatever takes my fancy. Sometimes I like painting on paper, and so it really does depend. And I do also think that there is a thing where you could spend all this money on an oil primed linen surface or buying loads of them, and then if you're not motivated to paint and you don't enjoy painting on them, then it's completely pointless. So I would be interested to know your feelings. And there are two paintings behind me that I want to show you. One is primed with acrylic gesso and the other one is an oil primed linen, and I think you can see that there isn't a superiority in either. It's just a completely different look, but the reason the look is so different is the subject matter and my actual work. So just quickly, this is a hedgehog on wood, and this is a cat on oil primed linen. So you have the two different artworks there. So I do hope you enjoyed this video and this little chat at the end, and I hope you're all doing super well and keeping safe, and I will see you in my next video. Take care, guys.